Welcome, everyone. My name's Philippe, and I'm here from the Young Lasallians team in the District of Australia, New Zealand, Pakistan, and Papua New Guinea. We're excited for this podcast series, Walking New Paths. And before we begin, I just want to acknowledge wherever you are, wherever you're listening, just the First Nations people of whose lands we gather today. Here in Western Sydney, it is the Darug people of the Eora Nation, and we take a time to acknowledge the elders past, present, and emerging, and we recognise that this land was never ceded, and we partake in the ancient tradition of storytelling. So we just take a moment to pause and gather and to acknowledge that. Thank you. And I'm super excited to be here with another special guest who also hails from Western Sydney, someone who's, some would say, are quite inspirational and poetic, so to speak, and walking new paths herself. Can we give it up for Sara, who's going to introduce herself?
Thank you so much, Philippe. I'm also super excited. So I am the co-founder and director of the Bankstown Poetry Slam. The Bankstown Poetry Slam is an arts organisation which has the purpose of providing a platform for people across Western Sydney and beyond to express themselves artistically through the medium of spoken word poetry. So we have monthly events at the Bankstown Arts Centre. And more broadly, we run workshops and we facilitate festivals and just try and connect people to the art of storytelling through poetry.
That's wonderful. And as someone who's gone to a few myself, they're definitely exciting spaces to have all walks of life to be heard and to be shared and to do it really quickly within 3 minutes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I've got a few questions for you just so that the audience can get to know you.
Sure.
Who would your favourite artist be at the moment?
Oh, Kendrick Lamar.
Nice. What would your favourite meal be?
Oh, that's a hard one. Right now I'm eating a lot of rice pudding. So,
yeah, rice pudding can be a whole meal for sure. At the moment, what would a perfect day be?
A day where my baby is not crying during my podcast.
Lovely. And how would you describe, what are 2 words you describe yourself back in high school?
Eccentric and nice.
Perfect. What are you grateful for right now?
I'm grateful for the rain. It's raining right now, so I'm grateful for that.
Yeah, it's definitely been a couple months without the rain, so
it's beautiful.
Different. And what's something people don't generally associate with yourself?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know. I think that people think that I'm quite a traditional person, but I'm actually, I've always been pushed by my parents to be myself and to push the boundaries. So I'm not as traditional as people think I might be because I wear the hijab, so they form assumptions about me.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, awesome. Well, that really is a great introduction to what we're talking about and the title of the series of Walking New Paths and that sense of walking in your own way. We've got a strong heritage and, coming from the Islamic tradition and the Lasallians coming from the Catholic tradition and all of us being human is a great way to kind of jump off. So here we are. We're talking about Walking New Paths. Can you tell the audience a bit more about your story that, when this first kind of came up of Walking New Paths, how does this relate to yourself and Bankstown Poetry Slam?
Yeah, sure. So when I got into spoken word poetry, I was 19 years old. And the first time I was exposed to it was I was watching a video of a Palestinian poet who was performing a poem online. And she says a line, so her name is Rafif Ziara, and she repeats the line, "I am an Arab woman of color and becoming all shades of anger." So I really loved that and it really resonated with me. And I felt like for the first time I saw some positive representation of a woman in the arts industry who was kind of like, reclaiming her agency in a way. And that was just really piqued my interest. And so I felt motivated to start writing and performing poetry as well. And I started going to various poetry events around Sydney. But the problem I faced as a young Muslim woman was that most of these events were held at bars. So as someone who doesn't drink and as someone who has younger siblings that I wanted to bring along with me to these events, there was just like barriers to access that made it uncomfortable for me to be in those spaces. So my friend Ahmed Aradi and I basically started our own poetry slam, which was the first poetry slam in Western Sydney and is now known to be the largest of its kind in the country.
Yeah, wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And some of the things striking for me there was having some people up there who represented something of what you could relate to and giving you some of that sense of agency. Can you tell me a bit more of how you transitioned from seeing someone on stage to writing your own thing and then the process of then I really feel that I need to start something of my own or with others?
Absolutely. Well, like I remember it was a time in my life where I was really kind of like starting to ask myself these questions of who am I? What is my purpose? What is my identity? Why am I here? And so seeing that and then thinking, I can do this. There was a few thought processes that underpinned that transition. And one was that I wanted to be a positive voice for Muslim women. And I also just wanted to be heard. I wanted to tell my own story, and I think that at the time there weren't many positive representations of Muslim people in the media. And it was, I guess, growing up against the backdrop of like the Cronulla riots, 9/11, and then most recently then around that time there were the terror raids, if you remember that. So, all of that kind of like came to a head and I really just felt like I needed to put my voice out there to counteract some stereotypes and just to show the world who I was. So when I started writing poetry, I wrote about all the things that people wouldn't anticipate to hear from a Muslim woman. I didn't write angry war poems, although that's probably like, what I wanted to write about. But at first I wanted to say, well, I want to debunk these stereotypes. So I wrote about love. I wrote about the like homophobia in the Muslim community. I wrote about, oh God, so many poems about family and just the strong women in my life and the ones that raised me and the ones whose shoulders I stand on. So those were kind of like the common threads in my writing.
That's beautiful. And it's really interesting as I think about it. And even from my own perspective of saying, going to a poetry slam, which is, for me, going to yours was the first one I've ever gone to that it wasn't in a bar, it was inclusive, and even just now taking for granted it's a safe space for a section of the community that previously wasn't welcome, I guess, or comfortable.
Yeah.
How was it, and I guess it continues possibly, of having strong stereotypes in the media or even within family or different cultures? What are some of the challenges that you face with changing that perception and fighting against it, and what keeps you kind of going in some of those tougher moments of things? It's beautiful of putting up different images up there, but I feel like it's also challenging at the same time to constantly portray a different image or a different to the stereotype,
Yeah, it is. And I think it's intentional. And I think it's also, there has to be give and take from both sides, right? So a lot of the times people have stereotypes, they hold stereotypes about others because there's a fear of the unknown. So in order for someone to want to learn about others, they have to let go of that fear, because fear is completely illogical, right? There's no reason to be afraid of a woman wearing a piece of cloth on her head.
Yeah.
And a lot of the damage was done by, unfortunately, media around the world and the entertainment industry as well, always portraying Muslim women or Muslims as the women as oppressed and the men as, raging terrorists. So yeah, I think in order to like bridge that gap of misunderstanding, both people have to take a step towards each other. So I think like, a lot of the breaking down of stereotypes that I've probably done is incidental, just by getting up on stage, showing that I'm a confident person, showing that, I'm educated, I have a perspective on different things, and I can hold my own. That probably in and of itself has broken a lot of stereotypes. Rarely, but people sometimes do come up to me and say, wow, I didn't know Muslim women thought about this like this, or I didn't know Arab women, were allowed to work. And like, just like really, really simple things that you think, in this day and age, people wouldn't have those misconceptions, but they still do. So, I like the analogy of walking a new path, because for me, the avenue of spoken word poetry was a new path. I previously didn't think that I was really good at creative expression or writing. And it was a big leap of faith to me, for me to even get into that kind of avenue of storytelling. So I think that it's a beautiful thing to now kind of be able to look back in retrospect and see, as daunting and as scary as it was for me to get out of my comfort zone and perform in front of people. The first few times my legs were shaking and my hands were shaking and I was sweaty like mum spaghetti, Eminem, completely out of my comfort zone. But so many beautiful things come from walking new paths, and it kind of makes you realize that you have to kind of have faith in the path that you're embarking on, because at one point everything will make sense.
Yeah, we're 7 years down the track from when you first started, right? And it's a leap of faith to begin something with a co-founder. And your writing. Looking back, how did you know that you should keep going, or this is worthwhile pursuing? Like, was it at the very beginning you had a specific goal, or was there a process or tool that said, no, this is really something to pursue for so long?
Yeah. Well, like, to be honest, when we first started, we had no idea what we were doing. Just two young kids that really just thought, hey, this is a fun idea. Let's just do this. No marketing plan, no strategy, no concept of where it would take us. We just thought that it would be a good idea to get a bunch of people together and to perform poetry. And it wasn't really until people started to tell me how important it was to them and how much it's changed their life that was the fuel for me to keep going. So my co-founder stepped down a couple of years afterwards, and I continued to carry the organization with a team of volunteers. And, the anecdotes of people just really kind of reinforcing and reiterating how important the spoken word poetry has been for them, for a tool of self-expression, to let them feel like, they have a place, a safe space for them to express themselves on the issues that they're concerned about, and to feel heard and to feel seen. That's what really kind of kept me and my team going.
That's awesome. And coming to that so you started with this co-founder, and you both had no idea, and you just said, hey, it's going to be fun to do. And it just kept rolling from there.
Yeah.
It's interesting, the sense of a co-founder choosing another path, but you're saying, no, this is for me, and then gathering a group of people. And that's what struck me, that there's always a team of people who are doing it now. It's not just I'm the founder, therefore I have to do everything. How have you shared, I guess, using the analogy, shared the path with others who weren't maybe originally there, and how did you continue to, I guess, evolve and pass on that that vision for this safe space of creative expression for such a diverse audience?
Yeah. Well, I think it's interesting because I think that they were kind of on a similar path, but then our paths kind of like converged into one. So like through the space, this group kind of became friends, started to hang out after the events, started to think about different ideas, what would be exciting. And then, we just started kind of working together. And like I mentioned, it's on a volunteer basis. So there's a real thirst to make positive change. There's a real vision that we kind of share that is all about empowering others. And I guess in turn, empowering ourselves in a way, because you do feel so empowered when you're helping others and getting others to discover and forge their own new paths as well.
Yeah, that's an awesome sense. What I guess I'm hearing is you were going along for the journey and a group of people just drawn to walking organically together and seeing how it kind of emerged and just by doing the daily walk of coming together for the purpose, it wanted to go, I guess, crystallize around this vision of what it could be. Is that right?
Yeah, that's absolutely spot on.
There's a whole bunch of people out there that might be feeling the same, of not represented in society or having a space or having a different idea. It might not be poetry, it might be something completely different. You mentioned you had no idea, but if you could go back and provide some encouragement, also insight for people like yourselves at this beginning part of their path, what would you say?
That's a really good question. I guess it depends on what the project is, but I guess some tips that what are the kind of things that I did when I was starting the Poetry Slam is I first did my research. So I looked into whether there were any other poetry slams in Western Sydney. I looked at what the events are around Sydney, and then we started talking to organisations in and around Bankstown to see which organisation would be keen on hosting us. And we actually spoke to a cafe because we thought it would be cool to be in a cafe first, but then they actually weren't keen on the idea. And then we went to the Bankstown Arts Centre. First we went to council and then we went to the Bankstown Arts Centre. And that's where we met up with Bankstown Youth Development Services, which is now known as Out Loud. And they were happy to facilitate the space for us to for free so we could host these events. So I think doing your research is definitely important, but also I guess having a clear idea of what it is that you want to achieve, because for us we had to articulate to the Arts Centre what we wanted to do and what the purpose of it was, and we must have come across as quite genuine and quite excited by the idea, because we were able to generate enough trust to kick this off with the Arts Centre and develop a relationship over time, which ended up being mutually beneficial, because then they started getting a lot of people coming through the Arts Centre. And I can't tell you like how many lives it's changed. People have met at the slam and gotten married. Yeah. And just to say we have a 0% divorce rate. And, like people have gone on completely different career paths. So my favorite story is my friend Bilal, who's also part of the steering committee, not only met his wife through the Poetry Slam, but also was studying teaching and then was employed to run workshops for the Sydney Story Factory and is now one of their lead workshop facilitators.
Wow.
So he went from, kind of going down a path of being a teacher to now running poetry workshops on a daily basis. And it's a job that he absolutely loves. And he always credits the Poetry Slam for like putting him on a completely different path. So that's a really beautiful thing. And it's proof, I guess, that when you're intentional with your goals and your aspirations and, you are positive, then you'll be put on the right path and you connect with the people that will get you to where you need to be.
That's lovely and really practical too of, doing some research and saying there's got to be other people out there or what is out there to even find out what that is, see who you can partner with. And I love that it was a collaboration with out loud at the moment, and previously known as something else, and then the crystallizing of what is happening, what is the goals, what is it really that you're talking about that might provide some clarity moving forward. So that's super cool.
Thank you.
I've got a couple more questions.
Yeah.
We've talked about BPS, and it's really interesting again that you're the co-founder, but even the last few months, it's a new path of having to actually pass it on to the rest of the steering committee, and even stepping back a little bit, as often, young people are pioneers for something, but there's a sense of also sometimes needing to let go of things or change a little bit of direction. Yeah, can you give some insight into navigating that process, really, or what helped you understand that this was the right time to step in a different direction, I guess?
Yeah, definitely. Well, I guess I'd like to start off by saying that the whole purpose really of the Poetry Slam in Bankstown is to proverbially pass the mic, right? So it's about putting the microphone in the hands of the people who need to be heard. And I think that that's been an important thing for me to be able to learn over the years is, telling my own story has been important. And then stepping back and being able to let other people tell their stories and not speaking for people, letting them speak for themselves, has been really, really integral to the success of the Poetry Slam, right? So I guess now I'm at a stage where I'm also passing the mic, but in a different way. And I think that that's really important because we have a new generation of leaders and thinkers, and, they need to be able to drive change, and they have really exciting ideas and really exciting perspectives. And I'm really cognizant that as much as, my heart might be in the right place and I might have the best intentions, sometimes you need to be able to let go so that something can actually grow. And that was not intentionally rhyming, but, that's a really important part of growth, is sometimes just letting go and letting God. I think is a really nice way to think about it.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And just to say, as a person from the outside, watching you transition, at least at the slams, has been a graceful process. And I can, imagine how challenging, bittersweet, but also proud moments it might be to be able to do that, to recognize that state, letting it grow. So
yeah, it is. It is really bittersweet, because you kind of think like, oh, the world will completely collapse if I'm not there, or if I'm not doing X, Y, Z. And then, your ego kind of gets you in check, and then you're like, oh, actually, no, if I'm not there, they can absolutely carry on. So it's nice to kind of think that, your existence is not the be all and end all. Puts things into perspective as well, especially now that I'm embarking on this new path of motherhood. So I need to be able to put my ego aside and to ask for help when I need it. So that's been really important as well.
That's super encouraging to see a leader recognize that. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you.
I guess the last place that I want to ask and delve into is, you're clearly a woman of faith and great heritage, and it's one of our core values here amongst faith, service, and community. What has your faith and spirituality helped you in your, I guess, pursuit of walking the path? What part has your faith played in the story of your that you've been talking about?
Yeah. So I think you were there when I was doing my feature set as my final kind of goodbye before I went on maternity leave. And I shared this story for the first time, and I'll share it again. So when I was kind of like at that stage of having an identity crisis and not knowing who I was and my purpose and stuff, I very intentionally prayed to God that he would lead me to the path that I'm meant to be on. And I said, I want to help. I want to make a change. I want to do something positive, and I don't know what that is. And I really prayed for guidance. And, then I met Ahmad, who I started the Poetry Slam with. We kind of like randomly through uni became friends. Like we were doing completely different degrees. He is one that turned me on to spoken word poetry. We started getting into it together, and then started the Bankstown Poetry Slam, and met the right people. The word got around to the right people. The community started to build, and I can't really take credit for everything because a lot of it was just pure magic. It just all kind of fell into place. So I really credit my faith, and I really credit God with opening so many doors for me. And even, like in my professional life as well, like I was studying law, and at the time, like I was looking for work, and someone told me that I should take the hijab off if I wanted to find a decent job. And, that really like hurt my feelings. And again, I prayed that someone would open the door for me so I could find a good job. I mean, even an unpaid role. I was just so desperate for experience. And then I ended up meeting someone who introduced me to someone who, and then I ended up, getting a job at a top tier law firm, which is, for me, I never even dreamed of that possibility. I never even like set my goals that high. So I think that we shouldn't underestimate the power of prayer, and really just like visualizing what it is that we want, and then sometimes we get something better even than that. So faith and spirituality have been so important to me, and I can give you a million different other examples, but those are just to show you like how it's like kind of put me on to the path and kind of culminated in where I am today.
Yeah, no, that's amazing, and just a beautiful. Thank you for sharing that path, and it's this sense, especially from the communities that we're in. So many young people are discovering what faith and spirituality means for them. So to having lots of different examples of where it can take you and the strength it gives you is just a wonderful thing that they can own, and we can learn from one another, that the different heritages of faith can complement each other. So it's a beautiful thing. Can I ask, do you have particular practices that help you kind of keep it fresh and alive? And just acknowledging that I come from a Catholic background, so I'm not exactly 100% on all the different practices, but I know we can learn from the different practices that we can own for ourselves. But as a young person trying to discover what it means for them, what would you recommend as possible particular practices to keep them on that journey of their spiritual life?
Yeah. So for me, I started praying from a young age. I think I was like 9 or 10 years old, and doing the obligatory 5 daily prayers that Muslims do. But it wasn't really until probably I was in my early 20s that I started to look at prayer not as a chore, but rather as an opportunity to show gratitude, to connect, and to kind of like take some time out to think about what I'm grateful for, and to pray for what it is that I might need, and to pray for the people in my life. So I think that shift in perspective for me was really important, because then I started to get all the benefits from prayer in a way that I didn't when I was young, because I was just like, we'll do it as fast as possible and then see you later. So that's one thing. And then also, I guess, just like learning about different perspectives and learning about different paths. For me, I hold no hatred in my heart for anyone, no matter what journey they're on, and what they believe in. I firmly believe myself that we have to have respect for every single human, just by virtue of our own humanity. And it's not even that we want that respect in return. I think it's just like we just need to be able to give people respect, because it's just a basic tenet of not only our faith, but also just being humans.
Yeah.
So I try and learn and educate myself as much as possible about different faiths and different perspectives, so that, if I have any ignorance, or if I have any misconceptions, and there's no excuse for it, right? We're in an age where you can learn about absolutely everything just from the internet. So there's no excuse not to know about ideas that are different to your own. And I think that broadening your perspective and expanding your horizons is really important. It makes you a better person, a better friend, a better human overall.
No, thank you for sharing such a insightful and personal, deeply personal thing as well. I think it's so true, as you said, that we can learn so much from just respecting each other as a common human people,
Yeah.
One of my favorite things for myself is saying, whenever someone asks what do you do, or title or whatever, I like to say I'm a human being.
I love that.
First and foremost. So
I love that. That's cool.
They're all the questions I've really got. Is there anything you feel like just from this or from your heart that you feel like you want to say?
I guess if I can say one thing, I think it would be that don't underestimate yourself and your ability, and, have faith in yourself and trust in yourself and your instincts. And if there's something that you want to do, just get out there and do it. Just grab the mic, grab your mic, just grab it and share your story and live your most authentic life. I think that's like super important. There's a lot of people and a lot of messages out there that are telling you should be a certain thing or live a certain way. And until you tap into your inner voice and you understand exactly who you are and where you want to be, you're just going to be confused and unhappy. And life is too short to be unhappy.
Sara, I just want to thank you for taking the time out to talk and converse, not only in this forum, but for the last 7 years of creating spaces for other people to tell their stories authentically. I know that we'll share some of your work and some of the BPS work of people's stories in places that you just canvas of a wide variety of people that you've helped provide agency for and help them walk their path. So just on behalf of the Young Lasallians team and everyone else that you've touched, just to thank you for, just for who you are and the spaces that you're creating.
Thanks so much, Philippe. It's really been a pleasure, and I really appreciate you getting me on here.